Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. Hopefully this is going to work. There's a lot of traffic noise. I'm at the front of the front porch of a coffee shop that I usually get my herbal tea at. And of course I started the video, so the hospital 1 block away is going to send the one ambulance in the county right past me right now. And yes, I live in a county with one ambulance. Technically, that's not true because the Naval Air Station also has their own ambulance service, but yeah. And then there's a helicopter, which doesn't really count. So the Marty Party, and that's at Marty Party Music on Twitter, made a comment, a post earlier today about how 2020 is two kids fighting over who to blame. You know, he did it first, he hit me, and I hate that. I said I would do a video about this because I really hate that. This just bugs me so much. I've been dealing with this for a long time. There's a couple components to it. One is for a long time, if you were going to criticize anything in progressive space, anything in democratic space, anything in liberal space at all, you had to start by acknowledging that everyone on the right and the Republicans are just as bad or worse and apologizing for that, and then please may I criticize you just a little bit. You know, so if you're going to say something about, okay, so the Democrat City thing, this is not new, all right? We've known about Democrats destroying inner cities for decades. You know, it's not suddenly 53 years after Baltimore went Democrat, we suddenly realize, we know this. We've been dealing with this for a long time. So if you were going to say something like Democratic policies are hurting black populations in the inner city, you would have to say, well, I know that Reaganomics was really bad and that the Republicans don't have any good answers and that they just want to stop welfare and are all completely bad, but I need to tell you that the Democrats are. So this mandatory apology thing has just always pissed me off. But there's always, it's part of the mythology. It's part of the political mythology series that I'm doing. One of the myths is that it's always both sides. But you only hear that as a mandatory argument or excuse if you're criticizing the left. So if you criticize the right, if you say, oh, the Republicans are trying to shut down welfare, they're just horrible. You don't say, oh yeah, well, it's always both sides. That's not how it goes. It's not how the narrative goes. However, if the Democrats do something really stupid to break welfare, then you have to say, oh, it's always both sides. Both sides do it. It's all the fault of both sides. No. You can be responsible for your own fuck-ups and not share the blame with the other side. People want to make this into something where there's no responsibility for their preferred point of view because everybody has corruption. So it's like this argument, and I've seen this. This is actually a very urban culture argument. There's a lot of urban subcultures in the U.S. that don't have ethical or moral systems that are very workable. And it's the thing about cheating or stealing something. It's like, well, they do it, everyone does it. They all do it too. Like, it doesn't excuse what you are doing is what you are doing. Now, going back a couple weeks to when I said that thing about the law has to be equal, and a friend of mine who got pulled over for doing 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, even though he was being passed by all the traffic, well, that's equal treatment under the law, which is a fairness issue, but it doesn't mean that he wasn't speeding. It's just that if everyone is doing it, you have to pull everyone over, no one over. You can't set up preferential enforcement. Different topic, because I know someone's going to try to ding me on that. But there's a lot of people who really seem to run this idea that you have to blame. If you criticize the left, the right must be blamed. It does not go both ways. It's not very common to criticize the right, to say, oh, Trump is telling the CDC what they have to do, and then say, well, of course, Pelosi's just as bad. People don't say that. It's not a mandate, but it's a very weird set of political. It's a mandate based on a myth, and the myth is that everyone in politics is evil, or that somehow that you can use that assumption as an excuse for bad behavior, or to try to blame the other side for your own bad behavior. So if Pelosi does something bad, and I say, wow, Pelosi really fucked that up, then the response is going to be Trump. Trump is worse. Trump did something bad. The Republicans made her do it. The Republicans are horrible. The Republicans are just even worse. Or if I push back on that and say, no, Pelosi really did something bad, then it's, well, both sides do it. And it's a dismissal. And it's a piece of mythology because the Republicans are not responsible for what Pelosi does. Just for an example, okay? I'm not trying to pick on Pelosi. She's an easy target right now, but I'm not trying to pick on her. This does tend to run only one direction. It runs at the right. So you've got this family, for Marty, you've got this family where two brothers are blaming each other, but it's always the one kid who does something bad and then tries to get out of it by saying that his brother is also bad. That's the part that bugs the shit out of me. Okay? It is not always both sides' fault. It's not the Republicans' fault that the Democrats' entire platform is negative hate. That has nothing to do with the Republicans. You know, they can blame the Republicans, or they can demonize the Republicans as the source of their hate, but they're the ones doing the hate. They need to own up to it, take responsibility for it. And that's what's going on. And I'm not saying that there aren't people on the right who are full of hate, because I watch Twitter, and Twitter is full of the worst of humanity. But if you watch the DNC and you watch the RNC, yeah, there's hate. And you can't say, oh, it's both sides. Oh, it's just brothers accusing each other. That's not valid. You don't have to blame both sides for everything. And it's not a valid defense. It's never a valid defense. That's all I got. You know, coffee shop is closed. I'm actually hanging out here doing extra work and uploads. So I will talk to you later. Stay sideways. Have a good one.